Hi everyone, welcome back. In this video, we are going to mix and match our addition, subtraction, and multiplication division. We are talking about mixed operations here. So we have some problems to go through. We're going to do our best to make sure we keep our rules straight and make sure we end up with our correct number of sig figs at the end. Are you guys ready? I hope so. Let's get started. All right, before we begin anything here, let's make sure we review our rules because we have two different rules for addition, subtraction versus multiplication, division. So our addition, subtraction rule, again, remember it's your decimal places that's going to limit your number of sig figs. When we talk about multiplication, division, it's the overall significant figures that is going to limit your sig figs. So we're going to need to keep both of these rules in mind. And also we're going to have to keep in mind what operation we're doing and which rule we need to apply. Because obviously if you get these rules flip-flopped or you decide to say just use the multiplication division rule even when you're adding and subtracting, your significant figures are not going to end up being correct. And we want correct significant figures. Let's start with my first example. Of course, I try to start with an easy example to start out with. Start slow and then jump in the deep end, right? So I have some mixed operations. You can see I have some multiplication here and I also have some addition. Now I'm going to follow my order of operations as I simplify this equation. So order of operations dictates that I need to do my multiplication first. So I'm going to multiply those two numbers before I do anything else. Now, when I multiply those two numbers, here's what my calculator gives me. I'm doing multiplication, so I'm going to use my multiplication division rule, which means I need to look at overall significant figures, and that's what's going to limit me in this kind of first part of my problem. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sig figs here, 3 sig figs here, so my answer should have 3 sig figs. Now I don't want to introduce rounding error because I'm really only partway through my calculation. So what I've done, and you can see I did this here, is I put a line underneath the place where I need to round. So if I was only doing this calculation, I would round at that 3. However, I'm going to take this number and continue on with it. So I'm not actually going to get rid of those decimal places. I'm just going to put that line to remind myself, hey, this is how many sig figs you should have at this point, at this step. Because for my next step, my order of operations tells me I can go ahead and do my addition. So I'm going to add these two numbers. Again, this is what my calculator spits out. Now when I'm doing addition subtraction, I'm limited by the number of decimal places that I have. And remember, this number here, I rounded at the ones place, right? So that actually has 0 decimal places, or it should have 0 decimal places. My second number here, my 83, has 1, 2, 3, 4 decimal places. So my 0 decimal places is going to limit my answer. Again, this is what my calculator gave me. It's limited to 0 decimal places, so I'm going to round to the ones place. Again, I put a line under there. So my final answer is 597. Now you guys already know how much I love scientific notation, so if you were to take that 597 and convert to scientific notation, there it is right there, still the same number of significant figures in that answer. Let's practice some more. Let's take a look at my second example here. Again, I've got some addition going on here, but I also have some division. I'm going to first follow my order of operations, which tells me I need to do my division first, and then I can do my addition. So I'm going to simplify both of my division problems first to this number here and this number here. Again, multiplication, division, I'm going to look at overall sig figs. So if I look at my first fraction here, my numerator has 5 sig figs and my denominator has 4 sig figs. My 4 is going to limit me. So this time I'm going to write in that I need 4 sig figs. So I should be rounding to this place here. However, I'm not going to get rid of those other decimal places yet because I don't want to round until the very, very end. Same thing with my second fraction here. I have 4 sig figs in the numerator. I also have 4 sig figs in the denominator. This makes it very easy. My answer, I should round to 4 sig figs, so I should be rounding right there. Again, I'm going to put a line so I know where that place is, but I'm not going to get rid of those other decimal places. Now I'm switching operations, so I need to keep in mind that I'm going to switch rules for my sig figs. I'm doing addition here. When I'm doing addition, I need to look not at overall sig figs, but I need to switch up and look at decimal places. So again, I'm going to put these two numbers in my calculator. I'm going to add them up, and I'm going to get this number. And the question, the burning question always is, how many sig figs do I need in my answer to make it correct? So if I go back to my previous step and I look at my underlines, then I see that my first number has 4 decimal places. My second number has 3 decimal places. So I'm going to be limited to 3 decimal places, which means I am rounding right here. And then here is my answer to the correct number of sig figs. Okay, are we ready to move on? I hope so, because we're moving on. Here is a larger problem with mixed operations, because you know that I had to throw in some more scientific notation. It is my favorite. So this is a calculation that's more like you're going to do in chemistry class also, which is why I wanted to throw this in here. Some of you might recognize that numerator there as being Avogadro's number, but that's okay. We'll just treat it as just a regular number. We don't need to know that it is a special number. Okay, so for this long calculation here, again, I'm going to follow my order of operations, and that means I need to simplify this denominator here because it is in parentheses. All right, so again, I can plug all these numbers into my calculator, and I'm going to get this number out. I need to keep in mind I'm doing addition subtraction, so I am looking at how many decimal places. So for my 39 here, I have 4 decimal places. My 15, I also have 4, and then my 1 over here, I have 5 decimal places. So my answer should have 4 decimal places. 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, I'm just going to put a line under here. I'm not going to drop that 4 quite yet because I don't want to introduce rounding. All right, now actually, even though this still looks pretty complex, this becomes a lot easier because notice I'm only doing multiplication and division. So I'm only using one rule for my sig figs at this point onward. That actually makes it a lot easier. I'm still going to break this down and add another step in just so we go nice and slow, but you could put this whole operation into your calculator and skip down closer to the end. But let's simplify this fraction first. So if I put this in my calculator, this is the number that my calculator gives me, and I want to just mark where my sig fig should be for this calculation. So if I look at my numerator, I need to count up how many sig figs I have. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sig figs in my numerator. And then in my denominator, again, I'm just going to count to the point where I should be rounding. So that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 again. That 4 is not counted because I should have rounded to this 6 right here. So that makes it easy. My answer should have 6 sig figs. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. So I should round there. That makes it easy. Actually, my calculator ended up rounding correctly. And then, of course, I'm just still bringing this 3.8095 on down. Okay, my last operation, I'm still doing multiplication division, so I haven't switched up rules at all. When I put it in my calculator, here is the answer I get. Of course, the question is, where do I round? How many sig figs do I need? So let's count up my sig figs that I used. In this 3.8, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sig figs. Again, for this second problem, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sig figs. So my 5 is going to limit me here. I should have 5 sig figs in my answer. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And notice when I round that up, that 5 means that 9 is rounded up, which means you round up that 8 that's next to it. And here is my final answer. So a little bit of a tricky rounding problem there at the end as well. If you need any review on the individual rules, like if you just want to practice your addition subtraction rules or your multiplication division rules, I do have links to those videos where you can just focus on one at a time. But eventually we're not going to be able to avoid mixing up those operations. Thanks so much for watching.